This is going to be a supplemental video in reference to Jephthah and the sacrifice of his daughter. This story has always puzzled me a bit in the past, and it seems, as I said in my previous video, it seems to be the only recorded instance of a human sacrifice made in the name of the Lord. But that doesn't make sense because God rejects human sacrifices, and so if Jephthah had actually done that, he would have been condemned and would have lost everything, and yet he remains judge and is counted among the righteous. So how is this possible? I'm going to read this section in, again, the Institute Manual, which I think enlightens many passages in the Bible. And this is found, this is in, what chapter is it? This is chapter 22, beginning on page 256. This is section 2228. How did Jephthah offer his daughter as a sacrifice? It's a little bit long. I want to read the entire thing, though, because I think it's a good essay. Shouldn't take too long, but here we go. Many have supposed that Jephthah offered his daughter as a human sacrifice, and a literal reading of the text may support this view. But if that is true, some difficult questions are raised. Jephthah was regarded as a great hero and deliverer of Israel, and even his sacrifice of his daughter is treated in a way that suggests the author of Judges viewed it as a commendable act. In Hebrews, Jephthah is used as one of the examples of great faith. Would this case be true if he had engaged in human sacrifice, an act viewed as one of the greatest of abominations in ancient Israel? Why does Jephthah's daughter bewail her virginity rather than mourn the approaching loss of her life? After Jephthah had fulfilled his vow of sacrificing his daughter, the text states that she knew no man. Bible scholars have suggested an explanation that adequately answers these questions. Here we go. Here's the explanation. I do like this. And it's something that I have thought in the past might be true. But, I'll do it before I read the rest of this. But I've read this entire book, but it's been a long time. Full of great information. This is a much older copy. There may be some updates and some, edits in newer editions, especially what you find online, but basically the same information. And I think it is important information to have here, specifically on this instance. So let us read this. Jephthah was compelled by his vow to dedicate his daughter to Jehovah in a lifelong virginity. The entreaty of the daughter that he would grant her 2 months' time in order that she might lament her virginity upon the mountains with her friends would have been marvelously out of keeping with the account that she was to be put to death as a sacrifice. To mourn one's virginity does not mean to mourn because one has to die a virgin, but because one has to live and remain a virgin. But even if we were to assume that mourning her virginity was equivalent to mourning on account of her youth, it would be impossible to understand why this should take place upon the mountains. It would be altogether opposed to human nature that a child who had so soon to die should make use of a temporary respite to forsake her father altogether. It would no doubt be a reasonable thing that she should ask permission to enjoy life for 2 months longer before she was put to death, but that she should only think of bewailing her virginity when a sacrificial death was in prospect, which would rob her father of his only child, would be contrary to all the ordinary feelings of the human heart. Yet, inasmuch as the history lays special emphasis upon her bewailing her virginity, this must have stood in some peculiar relation to the nature of the vow. And this is confirmed by the expression to bewail her virginity upon the mountains. If life had been in question, the same tears might have been shed at home, but her lamentations were devoted to her virginity, and such lamentations could not be uttered in the town and in the presence of men. Modesty required the solitude of the mountains for these. And so again, the still further clause in the account of the fulfillment of the vow, and she knew no man, is not in harmony with the assumption of a sacrificial death. This clause would add nothing to the description in that case, since it was already known that she was a virgin. The words only gain their proper sense if we connect them with the previous clause, he did with her according to the vow which he had vowed, and understand them as describing what the daughter did in fulfillment of the vow. The father fulfilled his vow upon her, and she knew no man. He fulfilled the vow through the fact that she knew no man, but dedicated her life to the Lord as a spiritual burnt offering, in a lifelong chastity. And the idea of a spiritual sacrifice is supported not only by the words, but also most decisively by the fact that the historian describes the fulfillment of the vow in the words, he did to her according to his vow, in such a manner as to lead to the conclusion that he regarded the act itself as laudable and good. But a prophetic historian could never have approved of a human sacrifice. That gives us a better understanding. I still think it's a very pitiful story. She is forced into basically becoming a nun because of a rash vow that her father made. But her father wasn't forced to kill his daughter. Rather, because of the vow he made, she entered the service of the Lord. And be a burnt offering, a spiritual burnt offering, meant to live a virgin. She could never, because of his vow, she could never get married. She could never have children. Still a pitiful story. But not quite as dark as one might first suppose in reading in the Bible.